Hi, my name is Lauren.
And I'm Callie.
And welcome back to the BookCommonRoom podcast. Hi, welcome back to another episode of the BookCommonRoom podcast. We're so excited to talk about Persuasion this month. We're super pumped.
Oh, I was going to talk to you about this before we started, but I was thinking it might be fun if we talk about like just what we're reading right now to start off. Just normally, just to get us in, break the ice a little before jumping into...
Yes, because we know you're
Jane's
not
life.
all reading Persuasion right now.
We're going to convince you to read it if you haven't started already. But
Yes. What am I reading right now?
Yeah, what are you reading right now?
Okay, I am reading several books right now, but I had to make sure I made time for Persuasion. I'm reading I have yet to start. I finished the third book of the Mirror Visitor series.
Exciting.
That was really good. So now I'm in the fourth final book of the series, and then I'm reading Onyx Storm, and I'm about halfway through the book, and I've just kind of been going slow because, like, I'm going to be waiting a long time till I read the next one, so...
That's true. How are you liking it? What are you thinking right now? That's good.
I love it. I love the side character development. So good. Love it. Some people might not say the same, but I enjoy it a lot.
I know, I've just seen a lot of mixed reviews, but I also feel like anytime a book newly releases, you're going to find polar opposite opinions.
For sure.
But then, like, you let a couple months go by, and then the, like, I don't know, people who just liked it, their reviews will start coming out. So
Yeah.
I always wait for the hype to die down a little bit.
That's honestly a smart thing to do. But I just have been, like, have paced myself reading it.
Yeah, well, you've got a while till the next one comes out. So.
I know. I really do. But some people were like, maybe just like read it really fast and then reread it for the next book. But I'm taking it slow.
I feel like that's usually what I do with series. I also just get too excited.
That's why I'm like, I have to, we already know this. I have to know that the series is out before I can really start it. Otherwise, I will struggle. But I will.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I believe in you.
Do the research before you start a series.
I am currently, I just finished the second book in the Poppy War series, so I'm starting the third one.
Yes.
If you don't know what that is, it's basically this character, Rin. She goes to this military school, and each book is based off of a different war that happened in China. Mm-hmm. So the first one was when Japan was trying to take over China right before World War II? One? Which war was it?
I don't know.
It's like when they invaded Korea and China before one of the world wars is what the first one's based off of. Then the second one is based off of one of the Chinese civil wars. But
interesting.
It's basically just really sad, but I love it. It's great. You should read it.
You will suffer, but you can be happy about it.
Well, I don't know if you'll be happy, but you'll
just suffer.
Yeah.
There you go. That you're so good at selling the Poppy Wars. They're definitely gonna read it now.
No, but I'm so excited. The author, R.F. Kuang, she's just a genius. I don't know if she's currently teaching at Yale, but she was for a while.
Cool.
And she's got like her master's and everything. She's written quite a few books, but she's got a new one coming out at the end of the year. And she says it's like a combo of the Adventures of Alice in Wonderland.
Interesting.
And Dante's Inferno.
Oh, wait, that's actually kind of really cool.
So it's like a combo of the two, and I'm very excited.
Wow. You've piqued intellectual interest.
Anyways.
Very cool.
But yeah, that's just other things we're reading right now. But
Yeah, I'm curious what you guys are reading.
Yeah,
I feel like January lasted forever. And
oh,
so...
my goodness. Oh, yeah, it's February 1st.
Yeah, so January lasted way too long. So what books got you through this sluggish part of the year? These were the ones that kept us entertained.
Yes.
But we're super excited to introduce Persuasion. Oh my gosh, you guys. I can't even tell you. I am so excited to talk about this book. And this author. Like,
yes.
Who was Miss Austen?
We have the same last name. She spells it with
Just
an
spelled
E, though.
differently. Hers is very English.
I spell it with an I.
Yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. That's crazy. You also are a Miss Austen.
I am.
Very cool. Okay, so we're going to go into kind of what we usually do, where we introduce the author and just the impact of Persuasion and like the book she's been writing. And I'm going to be pulling from like the Norton anthology just because that's what I used to study about her. And then also what research Callie's done as well.
Also, if you hear rustling, I apologize. I don't know what the neighbors are doing.
Yeah.
But they're moving stuff around.
Yes. This is, I think they have a punching bag.
Oh.
And
So
you
you
never
hear that?
know when it's going to happen. So if there's like rumblings, this is because we share a wall and this is our life. At least we're not hearing them calling for their cat.
Kitty, kitty,
Yeah. Yeah, for like, and one day I thought the cat died. I was like, this cat is dead. They've been calling him all day. It was cold outside. I was like, this cat must have like frozen. But anyways, but we'll kind of get into like her biography. Do you want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. I didn't know this, but Jane Austen was one of 8 children.
Dang.
I guess I didn't know this because like in a lot of like documentaries or like film adaptations of her life, they usually really only focus on like her brother and like her sister, who like I feel like she had a close relationship with. But she was one of 8 children, and most of her life was spent in the country. So she was in some rural area of southern England, and that's where home was for her and her sister Cassandra, because neither of them married. And so they just lived at home their whole lives. Education for her and her sister looked more like a short period of time at boarding school, and then whatever they could get their hands on at home. So like whatever their father had, he was an Anglican clergyman. And so whatever he had, whatever books he had, that's what they were using to study. And it's really cool because like from a young age, she was like writing. So by age 12, she was like writing plays.
That's
to
awesome.
like make her family laugh. And then like eventually as she was like writing, she was proposed to in 1802. And I think she was, I don't know how old she was at that time because she was born in 1775. 28.
Yeah.
Okay. No, okay.
Isn't that how old Anne is in the book?
She's 27.
Oh, 27.
So like around the same age. So she was proposed to around age 28 and she ended up turning it down.
Wow.
And it's speculated that it was due to the fact that she would not be able to be an author while she was a wife, a mother, and a gentry hostess, because I think the person that proposed to her was of like noble birth. And like for people that may not know like some of the more Regency terms, the gentry were like a class of people that were noble and they didn't work. So a lot of times they relied on income from people using their land, like hunting, parties, things like that.
Passive income?
Yeah, literally lived on passive income because they inherited it.
Well, okay.
So that was what they did. And so anyways, the gentleman just didn't work. And so that's who proposed to her, and that's why it was speculated that she turned it down. And then by age 22, so like she had published by the time she was proposed to, but by age 22, she had sent her writings in to be published in London. And at that time, her writings were unreceptive. Like Northanger Abbey was the first thing she had written, but it's interesting because it was like published after she had passed away. So she had tried getting Northanger Abbey published, but it just wasn't selling very well. And I think they sold it for like super cheap, the publisher, so she had to buy her book back. And so she just held on to it, so she didn't lose money.
Yeah.
And so that was her entryway into publishing. And then she published Sense and Sensibility in 1811 at her own expense, so she paid for it, the copy and everything. And then Pride and Prejudice was published in 1813, Mansfield Park in 1814. And then by this time, she was getting noticed. And John Murray, who was the publisher for Byron, was publishing her books. So he published Emma, which came out in 1816. And then by age 41, she had passed away. She died of arsenic poisoning, apparently. Yeah, I know. And I wonder if it was, I don't think it was like all like in one moment. I think it was slowly over time. And I don't actually know for sure, so don't quote me on that. But I just knew that it was like, it had to do with arsenic poisoning, and it could have been like the plates they were using.
That's true.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But so she had passed away, and so a year later in 1818, they posthumously published Persuasion and then edited Northanger Abbey and published it. So Persuasion, I think they just published it as it was. And actually, in the version that I have from, I think I have the Oxford Classic version of Persuasion, she had a different ending of the book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's not very different, but she had written what she wanted it to be, but then kept the copies of what it was originally, and they printed that so people could compare.
We need to remember in our spoiler episode to talk about the difference.
Yes,
I didn't know this.
Yes, there are 2 different endings, and
Stay tuned.
I'm kind of glad what she decided to do. I think it was better.
Changed it?
So that's kind of her writing life. She was constantly writing. She was constantly putting out books.
Go her.
And, but they never were published under her name.
Oh. Hold on. I don't have my book.
Go get it. Run, girl, run!
I was going to pick it up, but I don't have it. Okay, I found it.
Girl, lemon water is so good.
It is. Okay.
I do think I added a little bit too much, so it makes my life
no,
cheese.
I like it. Look how pretty mine is. This is just the Barnes & Noble Classic edition.
That is so... Mine is
Right?
not as cool. Mine is this version.
Anyways.
This is the one that I used to read.
You got that one for school, right?
Yes. And
I just liked how this one looks, so I got it.
I would have done the same thing. I literally do the same thing. They told us we had to get this version because I think of it had the footnotes and then the ulterior ending.
Makes sense.
Ulterior ending.
Okay,
Anyways, beautiful books. We love them. But she was always publishing under like the name of like By a Lady is what she would write. Or I think for Sense and Sensibility, she was like, by the person who wrote Sense and Sensibility. It was like...
That's interesting that she still signed that she was a woman.
Yeah.
I feel like usually at the time they hid that fact. They would write by like a male
pseudonym.
Pseudonym, yeah.
Yeah, like the Brontes.
But she still was like, a woman wrote this. I'm not going to put my name, but it was still a woman.
But it's still a woman.
I like that.
Yeah. She wrote 6 novels, and which is incredible because they all were like, I think they were moderately popular, and the crazy thing is they rarely ever went out of print since publishing.
Dang.
Yeah, I think there was like a small lull, and then she got like popular again, and people like rediscovered her work. But rarely was her books ever out of print, which is a massive feat for any author.
Oh yeah, well, especially because when she was originally publishing, when she was alive, like she was, anytime I was researching it, people would say she was moderately famous. She was moderately popular. Like people didn't know her, but knew her works and enjoyed them.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until after she was dead, and what's his name? I wrote it down. Oh, Sir Walter Scott.
Yeah.
When he reviewed it, then it became popular, like really big. But
yeah.
Go her
Totally.
for even having that like slow beginning but still persevering.
Yeah, for real. And also like, it's crazy because I feel like you have like the Jane Austen shirts and the I Love Mr. Darcy shirts, and like everywhere there's like merchandise of her, but she was very private, clearly. Like she enjoyed her private life. She enjoyed her like country life. But when her father passed away, at one point, I think when he retired, they moved to Bath, and then he passed away, and she hated Bath.
I mean, you can tell.
Yeah.
From this book.
Persuasion, you can kind of tell, like, there's this yearning for nature and how nature is, like, this source of renewal. And you can kind of, I feel like that's a theme in a lot of her books.
Yeah.
But you do get a sense of that in Persuasion as, like, a theme. And, yeah, so this was a brief sketch of Jane Austen's life, and then I kind of want to get into what her impact was with the novel.
Okay, yeah.
So if we feel good about moving on.
Yeah, let's do it. Go for it.
I'm going to take from notes from my Norton anthology because I sat here.
Scholar over here.
And I was like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. I have to talk about this. Maybe I should cite this better. The Norton Anthology, English Literature, 10th edition, the Romantic period. But they had mentioned how, and this is something you can observe as a reader as well. But Austen was good at distancing novel form from the didactic agenda cultivated by her many contemporaries, who were convinced that the only respectable fiction was the anti-romance that weaned its readers off their romance expectations. She had great delight in mocking their preachy fictions. And it's evident in like some of the small plays she's written and in some of her writings that she wrote, but as a feature of her mature novels, which as a rule conclude in ways that deviate quite flagrantly of her from the patterns of reward and punishment a moralist might prefer. Essentially, Austen was able to change the novel by her way of creating her characters, who were ordinary, everyday people. You might be able to feel like you fit in with them, but they were unforgettable. And she did a good job at like fleshing out their characters and their development, which challenged how her contemporaries expected their novels' plots, settings, and characterizations to go. So I loved that. I thought that was so cool. Something that I learned was the Prince Regent of the time. I guess there wasn't a Prince Regent at the time, but the Prince Regent. Because I think Prince Regent was like when he was in the stead of his dad, because his dad was like not functioning as a king. He asked to be have Austen dedicate her book Emma to him.
Really?
Yes, and she did.
She did?
Yeah,
Wow, well.
she did. Like they wrote, the Prince Regent had like some contact reach out to her to have him be a dedication in Emma. And
I mean, I guess you can't say no.
No,
to him.
and I think it was interesting because it was like, wow, like the monarchy are reading like such domestic books. Like I don't know, and I think
wonder if they were like I wonder what kind of power. I don't know. Struggle there was, or if they viewed people that are viewed in Austen's books as like lesser than, so they thought it was like interesting.
I don't know, but it's funny because in reply she basically was saying like affirming why her books like have a central theme of humor in them and like the comic spirit of her writing. And she wrote, "I could not sit seriously down to write a serious romance under any other motive than to save my life. And if it were indispensable for me to keep it up and never relax into laughing at myself or other people, I am sure I should be hung before I had finished the first chapter."
Well, there you go.
So it's interesting because she's more about the humor and shining light onto I don't know what she felt she could talk about as a woman, but she mainly did it out of humor, less to be romantic, which is so crazy because when I read her books I'm like, that is so tender, like and so I don't know, like one of the things that this book notes is that through her heroines, readers can see as well how harshly the hard facts of economic life bore down on gentlewomen during this period when a lady's security depended on marriage. And that's like a huge thing within the books. And so like Persuasion, this book is like starting off by a character who's like entering spinsterhood almost. Like, because she's 27, she's 28, and she's
her
not married.
older sister's like in her 30s. And she's also not married, right?
And she's also not married. And then her youngest sister is. But
crazy.
That's the main character that we have, kind of setting the scene into Persuasion. But that was like a super brief sketch of Austen's life and her impact, and we kind of want to go into what critics were saying about her and how people responded to her, and a little bit more about Persuasion.
Yeah, when I was thinking about Jane Austen, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but when critics of our contemporary romance books, usually they'll say something like, romance novels aren't like literature. Like there's a lot of debate around that, right? And a lot of people who will rebuttal those critics will usually say something like, oh, authors like Jane Austen, when she was publishing things, they thought the exact same thing. Yeah. And I was always just kind of like, did they though? I mean, she wasn't like really famous.
Yeah.
But were people actually saying that? So I kind of just want to bring up a little... I wrote down some questions I want to go through, a little deep dive.
Yeah.
Just as we get into Persuasion, have you guys thinking about this kind of stuff. But my first question I want to ask you, why do you think she's so popular now? Like today, right now, why do you think she's so popular? Because we talked about when she was writing and right after her death, but today, why do people love her?
Girl, that's a great question. I love how you're asking me. I'm no expert.
I know why I love her, but I'm just curious, as a general...
As a reader.
Yeah.
As a reader, I find her, I don't know, I find her stories very timeless. And I think it's because she has such ordinary characters. Mm-hmm. So anyone can really, identify with that person. I find that there's some things in Anne that I really identify with, but Jane Austen just has such a way with words that she's able to put on paper what I'm thinking, but in a cohesive way. Yeah. And she does it very, I don't know, it's not ever life sucks as a woman or because there were women like that at that time that were definitely vocal about that. But I think she did it in a very soft way where she wasn't discrediting other arguments, especially in Persuasion, there's a very clear moment where there's tension between how a man feels and how a woman feels, and how you're always going to feel biased towards women if you're a woman, and men if you're a man. But she just does a really good job of making her characters feel timeless and relatable, while also being able to make commentary about the social climate. And I feel the social climate, it hasn't changed all that much in a few ways. I feel there have been great strides, but I feel there's a lot of things I identify with. But I also know men who love Jane Austen. And my dad, he's one of them. He loves Jane Austen. He'll sit down and watch the movies with me and my mom. And I think he feels the same. He finds them funny. He finds them timeless and relatable. And I feel those are things as readers that we gravitate towards. But
yeah, I love how each one of her characters could fall under a character archetype.
Yes, totally.
They are complex and they're fully fleshed characters, but they're also just super simple, especially her side characters. She always has a family member who's kind of crazy. So her sister and her dad is vanity. That's the thing. That's what she wants to talk about Persuasion. Vanity. So you're going to start off the book and that's what you're going to learn about. But then she adds in this main character who still loves her family and still wants to honor them, but also thinks a little bit differently. It's just very real. And I like what you're saying, how she isn't super outspoken in her books about a lot of opinions, but they're still there.
Yeah.
Through her characters' actions and what they do, you're able to understand what the message is and what's going on. It's easier to read, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And more enjoyable because you get to go along with the character as they're figuring things out.
Yeah.
Versus page 1.
Yep.
I'm a strong female character and I'm different than everybody else.
For sure.
I don't want to get married.
See, that's my other thing. What I feel is, I feel now, Jane Austen definitely is within classic literature when you go to the bookstore. But it is, arguably romantic. It's about, these couples coming together at the end of the book.
These are romance
These
books.
are romance stories.
Yeah.
But I feel compared to, other romance books that are literally just romance, it's not fantasy romance or whatever, I'm not saying that none of them have this, because I can't say that, because I haven't read enough. But I just think Jane Austen was able to do it with comedically. She was able to do it in a funny way. And I think that helps so much with the charm of her stories. Yeah. And in them not just being about romance, but they're actually about character development, and then how the characters end up being able to meet at the end. Anyways,
they're
I like that.
Two people who are individual that come together in the end.
Yeah.
That's how I had a professor explain Jane Austen like that. She's not in the romantic period, right? She was in the Renaissance?
She is romantic period.
She's romantic period. One thing that the romantics loved is you have two different people who are individuals, but in the end they come together, and as individuals they become one, basically. But they're still individuals.
Yeah.
They're still their own two separate people.
Yeah.
I just like that. I think that's beautiful.
I know, it's so good. Like, I'm so excited to get to our non-spoiler episode because Persuasion is, I personally I haven't read very many, even though I seem like I should have. I haven't. I have not read Pride and Prejudice.
Okay, that's a whole story.
That's a scandal.
Oh my goodness. We're going to pause. We're going to get into this. So, in high school, I didn't love Jane Austen. I was kind of a Jane Austen hater. I'll just say
Really?
it again.
I totally forgot about that stage of life.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Well, I kind of want to talk about Charlotte Bronte in a second, but I was a Charlotte Bronte lover.
Yes.
And Charlotte and Jane are just not the same. And so I was so obsessed with how the Brontes were writing their novels that trying to read Austen's writings, I missed the
gritty,
dark, sad, dark,
angsty.
That's what I wanted. I just wasn't getting it from Austen. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so all through high school, Lauren and a couple of our other friends were like, Callie, that's so weird of you that you couldn't read and finish Pride and Prejudice. Like, that's so horrible. Like, I was seen as lesser than.
She really wasn't. She wasn't.
That's how I felt.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Fast forward 4 years, I read and finish Pride and Prejudice. So I go to my friends, I'm like, guys, guess what? I did it. And guess what? You didn't even read it.
No.
So I went my whole life oh no, I'm just out of the loop with my friends. They love this book and read and loved it. But no.
In my defense, I never actually said I read it.
You didn't read it.
I didn't say that, but I still have never read Pride and Prejudice. I've read it halfway through in high school, and then I would just watch the BBC one, and I'm like, I think I'm good. I think I really get it. I think I do. So, yeah.
Anyways,
but back to the fact that I haven't
over. I had to get that out.
It's all fair. It's that's fair. I do just want to say that I have the sense within Persuasion, despite not reading enough of I've read Mansfield Park and I've read Northanger Abbey, but I just feel there's a maturity in Persuasion, and there is a level of melancholy that I get in Persuasion that I don't know if her other books have, which you probably could speak to, but I feel like it was funny, but not I don't know, the humor was subtle, but it was always there. Mm-hmm. It felt like mature writing, and there was a sense of melancholy.
Yeah.
And I just was really touched by that. And so of the books the few, Persuasion was one of my favorites, but to everybody else, Pride and Prejudice, I think, is the most popular.
Yeah, I think I like Pride and Prejudice more than this one, but it's not to say I don't like this one. I love Persuasion.
Yeah.
But there were aspects of Pride and Prejudice that I just found more entertaining. That's honestly what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. I can see on the academic literary side how Persuasion could technically be better, but I just had more fun reading Pride and Prejudice.
Hey, that's fair.
At the end of the day.
Also, I read enough of it to know that their banter was pretty fun.
Their banter is fun, and there's just more characters that are just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, in Persuasion, you had the dad, but you don't really get too much of him.
And the sister.
But the sister is, and that's kind of really it.
Yeah, it's really the sister, and, but, I mean, yeah.
And her husband.
The banter between Darcy and Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is pretty entertaining.
She writes good banter. I thought the banter in this one was great, too.
She has good wit, which is that's another thing. I think I really enjoy authors who have a sense of wit.
Yeah.
Because I don't have one when I write. I don't know how you learn wit in writing and make it come off well and smooth without it feeling forced.
Yeah.
Because
or just kind of cheesy.
Yeah, or cringy. And so she does it in I think, this isn't even a spoiler, this is the first page. But it's literally she starts off this book by saying, okay, here it was. Vanity was the beginning and the end of Sir Walter Elliot's character.
Yep.
Vanity in person and a situation. And that's the other thing about Jane Austen's writing is you're not in the POV ever of the character.
No. It took me a second to figure out who the main character was. Mm-hmm. I was like, is it Elizabeth?
It was none of them. Yeah.
Who is this?
And so you have a third party, viewing all these characters.
Yeah.
So you never really get the voice of any of her characters, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But I feel like you get to know them so well still get a sense of who they are as people.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
anyways.
So to circle back, after talking about why Jane Austen is so popular and beloved and why she might have become a classic author. So do you think that argument is valid that when people are trying to defend authors like Colleen Hoover, Emily Henry, or any popular romance authors today,
Yeah.
when they're like, oh, but at the time, those authors weren't as popular, so just give it a couple years and Emily Henry will become popular and well revered. Do you think that is a valid argument or not? Or do you think that Jane Austen is just on a whole different level? Even though she, at the core, if we're going to quote Charlotte Bronte, I'll just read it right now.
Yeah.
So Charlotte is known to be a critic of Jane Austen's works.
She's a hater.
A hater, which is hilarious. She read Pride and Prejudice and then was recorded saying this. It says, she ruffles her readers by nothing vehement, disturbs them with nothing profound. The passions are perfectly unknown to her. She rejects even a speaking acquaintance. Sorry, my computer's tilted.
You're good.
She rejects even a speaking acquaintance with that stormy sisterhood. So this is after reading Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
But she thinks that there's really nothing in there. There's nothing profound. And the passions are just unknown to her.
Yeah. I feel like that's such a... I wonder...
Such a Bronte thing to say.
No, it really is. But I wonder if she, like, read it because she was like, oh, like, it was written by a woman. Mm-hmm. Let's try this. And she probably read it, like... And was just the whole time, like, I imagine her reading it the same way you read Fourth Wing. Where you, like, immediately are like, you've got to be joking me. Like, you've got to be kidding me. We're going through the entire family line, the whole gentry class, so much about this. And, like, and for what, like, this domestic, like, very surface level, like, story that I feel I can see her like reading and being like,
yeah,
you've got to be kidding me. You offend me. You know? And I can totally get that, like, if I was Charlotte, who was a writer of what I was doing, and then you read this, and I feel like if you do such a skim reading like that, you totally could make that argument.
Well, I was reading an article about this, and I like this quote that they said, it was the two authors, so Charlotte Bronte and Jane Austen, were writing from different perspectives. Austen was writing about her keen observations of the world in which she lived. Charlotte and her sisters, on the other hand, wrote was in their imagination. Yeah. So they just wrote, they were just totally different. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of where Charlotte's coming from, is she's just like, Jane, why would I want to do more?
No,
do more than what you're doing.
It's so true. And also, like, I think of some people's arguments today why they're fantasy readers. Like, they're like, why would I go from, like, my life that's already hard and read about it? And so that could also be another thing. Like, maybe like she was like, yeah, I don't want to read about how this is our life. Like, how she is going to be a spinster because she's not married. Or, like, reading other, like, Pride and Prejudice, where it was like the mom was ridiculous, but it was because she's, like, constantly worried about her daughters. Yeah. And which, like, kind of has a good reasoning, but that was, like, real life. Yeah. Like, you have all daughters, you have no sons. Like, woof. Like, that's stressful as a parent of that time. And so I wonder if it was a little bit of that, too. Like, it was like, why would I read this? This is my life. Like,
that's true. So do you think in the future a lot of these popular contemporary romances are going to become like Jane Austen?
No. Because their popular romances are, like, so much more just about smut, I feel like. Yeah. But that's not all they are. I'm totally, like, offending an entire audience right now.
I totally agree with you. I pose this question because I think it's interesting to think about, but that I agree. I think Jane is just so good at capturing people and their real lives and what's going on, and that will never become, like, not, what am I trying to say?
I don't know, like, streamlined.
Like, that will never not be something that people care about.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's hard for it to be mainstream.
Yeah, well, people will always care about how other people feel. I don't know if that makes any sense. But versus, I think the trend of, like, super smutty books is gonna go. I think it's a trend that's gonna leave.
I really hope so, because I feel like, not saying that that's all, like, I know that there's some out there that are just, I bet there's other books out there that you could probably say, this makes me feel like how Jane Austen does.
Yeah.
And I just haven't encountered that or really tried to. I just
haven't really read that much.
I haven't really tried to. So let us know if you know of any that you're like, you know what, this kind of makes me feel like this. But nothing has really gotten me close because she does really good work with the minds of her characters, where I'm really genuinely interested in it. Like in my notes in my book, I'm like, I want the backstory about this, or like, what is this person actually thinking, or like, I don't know, like it makes you curious to know, even though you're not getting a whole lot of action. You're just getting ordinary characters, but I'm like, I want to know what they're thinking, and I find them very interesting that way. And I think books like that aren't very popular now, but somehow Jane Austen has embedded herself like within our culture to be able to sustain that kind of readership.
I think Sally Rooney might be the closest contemporary author we have that does that.
Okay.
She just writes about people. I think she literally has the book called
I feel like
Normal
Virginia
People.
Woolf kind of does that too.
Hold on,
Like Virginia Woolf,
Normal People
similarly does this.
Yeah, literally, Sally Rooney has a book called Normal People, and I mean, I critique this way. I literally think I'm just Charlotte.
Yeah,
I critiqued it the same way she critiqued Jane
Pride and Prejudice.
Pride and Prejudice. I thought it was just too normal.
Yeah,
I was like, this is just too mundane. I couldn't really get behind it. I wanted more, but people love Sally Rooney stuff because she does similar things that Jane Austen does.
Interesting. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I feel like, I'm not saying that the romance books that we have now that are contemporary weren't like the ones during the Romantic period. There were so many like crap books.
Yeah, you could probably find tons of stuff.
You had smut then too. Like you really, the Regency era. Wild. That was wild. We could have a whole episode on the craze of the Regency era and like Romantic period into the like Victorian and then into the Edwardian or whatever. But it's crazy. So I don't know, like not saying that never existed, but clearly one lasted and then the others didn't.
Yeah.
So that might tell us what our now is.
That's actually a good thing to point out is I guess
historically
we will find out through time which is going to last, and I think people like to stick to books that really delve into what makes us human and humanity. Like I think The Hunger Games is a good example of this. I think Hunger Games is having a resurgence because when it first came out, I've probably talked about this before. Anyways, I'm going to say it again. But when it first came out, I think a lot of people just viewed it as this like sappy young adult love triangle. But now people are going back and reading it and are like, oh, wait, this has got more to it. This is like about humanity. And I think Hunger Games will last. Yeah. Versus Divergent is not going to last. Yeah. Same genre, but totally different levels.
For sure. I love that note. That's a good note. I also feel like we've been able to bring up also the adaptations for Jane Austen will live forever.
Yeah, that's true.
They will be made and remade and remade. And I think I remember when the 2005 Pride and Prejudice came out, and I had grown up on the BBC series with Colin Firth and Jennifer L. And literally like that has like changed my brain. Like love the BBC series. I hated the 2005 one, but then I realized I was like, oh no, like Jane Austen wrote her characters in such a way where like you literally could spend a movie just focusing on one part of that character. Like Mr. Darcy feels so different, but that's still Mr. Darcy. Yeah. And it's because like they have the really shy guy. Yeah. Whereas in the other one you get a lot more of that banter and wit. And so I feel like you will forever continue to have adaptations by Jane Austen, and I feel like that speaks a lot to how beloved she is. Yeah. And also, like, I like the quote that you put on here from Sir Walter Scott. Was it on here? Where did it go? Oh, yeah. Because, like, then on the other side of, like, critics like Charlotte, who were very, like, harsh, but it was just because I feel like they have a different sense of what writing can do and, like, what books can be doing. Sir Walter Scott had praised her wit, her realism, and insight into the human nature. And that was like, I don't know, like I feel like that touched on how she was moderately popular at the time, and how she connects to me as a reader and what it seems for you as a reader. There's just things about our human nature that she just puts beautifully that I love.
I know, and I feel like her books are very easily adapted to be just beautiful. Like, you can just watch Pride and Prejudice and just be awed by the setting,
the music.
and the music. There's just so much to it that I just love.
Yeah, I think it's very pretty. But then again, like, Persuasion, if you watch any adaptation, it really is, like, pretty melancholic.
Yeah.
There's, like, a sadness to it, which I love. Like, I love about that, because I feel like with Pride and Prejudice, it's very, like, I don't know, all-consuming, beautiful.
Almost ethereal.
Yeah, and, like, but then you get Persuasion, which is, like, and then you have Northanger Abbey, which gives more of the Bronte vibe, because it's more like, this girl is obsessed with, like, ghost stories and stuff like that, and it gets into her head. But then you have, like, Persuasion, which just, like, there's, like, I don't know, I can imagine Anne having depression, like, reading that book and things like that.
Yeah.
So she has cool things with her characters. And the thing is, like, she rewrites the same names into the same characters. Like, you have another Elizabeth, you have another Jane, you have all these, you have another Mary.
Yep.
And it doesn't even matter, but it's just interesting because she can just create such colorful characters that somehow are, like, unforgettable, but also, like, I feel like I've met someone like that before.
There's always a cousin that, like, they might marry but don't.
Yeah. I love it so much. But thank you so much for joining us on this, I don't know, introduction of Jane Austen, who she is, and why I feel like you guys need to read Jane Austen, why we feel like you need to read Jane Austen.
I hope we got you a little excited to get into it. Persuasion is one of her is it her shortest? It's one of her shorter ones.
That and Northanger Abbey, I think.
I don't remember. Anyways, it's one of her shorter ones. I do feel like Jane Austen's writing is a little bit harder to get into versus other classics we've
do
introduced.
Need to talk about that. Yeah.
She spends a lot of time at the beginning just kind of info dumping. I don't mind it, but I know I've talked to some people in my life who are like, I just can't get behind her writing style. And that's usually what it is.
Yeah.
I don't want to scare you away, because you should still try it, because you'll love it. But I have noticed a trend where people are like, okay, we have all of these characters and I'm just supposed to remember them all.
No, it's very true. That's the thing too, is, like, we need, like, a family chart. The thing is, like, I read Persuasion in class, and then I read it again, and I'm so glad. Like, I feel like once you read Jane Austen, you'll kind of get it.
Yeah, and I mean, you get into it. Like, I think by, like, the 10-page mark, I was like, okay, I got this. Yeah,
the language is, like, it isn't super easy to get from the get-go, so I feel like I had a learning curve understanding her language.
Yeah.
And then, like, after I would reread stuff, I'd be like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Like, now I get it. So it is, like, a learning curve to get that language, mainly because it was written in, like, I mean, this was published 1818.
Yeah.
So there's that. But yeah, definitely don't let it deter you, because you're missing out if that stops you.
Give it just 10 pages.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us. We will catch you guys next time.
Bye.